merely to pay administrative costs for the program. This bill would not cause the government to spend any additional money. It would mean the federal government takes in less in interest from disaster recovery loans. But can anyone honestly say that providing disaster recovery loans for American homeowners and American businesses should be a money-making operation? I strongly encourage my colleagues to support H.R. 3042, the Disaster Loan Forgiveness Act. Give Americans a low interest rate and help them recover. While my neighbors in northeastern Pennsylvania recover and rebuild, they're also asking what steps are being taken to protect them in the future. This is the role of the federal government. We must make sure a disaster of this scale does not happen to these people again. First, the Army Corps of Engineers must complete a comprehensive study of the Susquehanna River Basin in my district. After the flooding caused by Hurricane Agnes in 1972, the Corps built massive levees to protect the most populated areas of the 11th District. Those levees protected thousands of homes and businesses. But many people believe they also funneled walls of water, of floodwater, into unprotected areas upriver and downriver. Some of those residents were told they didn't need to buy flood insurance because they don't live in a floodplain. As these people struggle to rebuild their lives today, they want to know if the floodplain has changed. My constituents deserve to know what role, if any, these new flood walls play during this event. What is known is that some communities were devastated because they lacked adequate flood protection. For 40 years, the town of Bloomsburg has been asking for flood protection. There is a plan to provide it, but the Corps of Engineers will not fund it because it does not meet an arbitrary benefit-to-cost ratio, the BCR. Now, because of the lack of adequate flood protection in Bloomsburg, 1,000 jobs are on the verge of being lost. 2 of Columbia County's largest employers sit in the floodplain. When Fishing Creek and the Susquehanna River flood, these employers not only have to shut down production, but they also have to move equipment. That costs them hundreds of thousands of dollars. During this flood event, more than 6 feet of water poured through their shops, destroying equipment and inventory. At a time when we're talking about how to create jobs, we're not doing enough to protect these. What is the negative benefit-to-cost ratio of the Bloomsburg Flood Protection Project if we lose these jobs? What happens to this town, this county, and my district if we lose 1,000 jobs? That's just one component to the Bloomsburg project. This year, about 1/3 of the buildings in that town were flooded. 1/3 of an entire town. Worse, the Bloomsburg Fair, one of the largest economic drivers for the town, the county, and dozens of community and charity groups, had to be canceled for the first time since the Civil War due to the epic flooding. What happened to Bloomsburg could have been prevented. The federal government dropped the ball. It failed to protect homes and businesses. We need to make sure that it doesn't happen again, not to Bloomsburg and not to other communities along the Susquehanna that need protection. Sadly, for some of the people I've spoken with, flood protection will come too late. Some of my constituents have told me that they will not move back into their homes. The Great Flood of 2011 was just the latest in a long line of floods that they've had to endure. They're tired of picking up the pieces of their shattered lives. Some, in fact, were in the process of being bought out by the government when this flood hit. Now they're in limbo, unsure of whether to accept federal aid or if accepting help would jeopardize their pending buyouts. This Congress needs to look at the buyout process. I fear it is too confusing, it takes too long, and it discourages people from trying to receive the help they need. Mr. Speaker, over the last several weeks, I have seen terrible destruction and hardship endured by my constituents. But I've also seen tremendous good as neighbors helped stricken neighbors, community groups banded together, charities mobilized quickly and effectively. In Plymouth Township, I met Red Cross volunteers from Michigan who made the trip to northeastern Pennsylvania to help people that they never met. In Bloomsburg, I visited Agape, a local ministry that provided flood victims with everything from cleanup buckets to hot meals. Church groups, scout troops, college clubs, sports teams, people from all across northeastern Pennsylvania and beyond came together to support each other. The recent flood was a terrible disaster, but it also brought out the best in our people. As I was driving through West Pittston, a small borough that was absolutely devastated by flooding, I saw a sign on a front porch, "The Valley with a Heart. Thank you." My constituents were knocked down, but not out. The people of northeastern Pennsylvania are strong and resilient, but they need help from the federal government. And the federal government needs to help them. If they get that help, my neighbors will come back stronger and better than before. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back.
Does the gentleman